une frontière n'arrête pas un virus. Ça ne me dire l'Allemagne donc l'Européen fait franchir un nouveau stade que cause, me semble-t-il, c'est peut-être pas top projet, parce qu'on sait déjà que la santé n'est pas une compétence européenne et que les États se la sont gardées, se la sont appropriées. Donc c'est plus un manque de souveraineté européenne qui explique ce manque de coordination et donc ce retour du chacun pour soi. Et il y a quand même un souci qu'on voit à chaque étape de cette crise depuis maintenant plus d'un an, c'est l'incapacité de l'Union européenne dans son ensemble, à part sur la commande des vaccins, qui en fait, il y a un problème sur les livraisons et sur les camps. Il y a eu une vraie coordination pour commander ces vaccins. Mais sinon, à chaque étape de cette crise, on voit une forme un retard dans la recherche de solutions collectives.
Alex Boyaguet.
Oui, effectivement. Après, on ne peut pas blâmer Ursula von der Leyen. On sent qu'elle essaye d'harmoniser tout ça. Et c'est vrai que l'achat commun des doses de vaccins est fonctionne de l'Europe. Après, c'est vrai que en situation de crise, ça crée des crispations et chacun se replie un peu sur lui.
Sur ce sujet, on le voit aussi sur le passeport vaccinal, qui est une idée européenne aujourd'hui, qui prend beaucoup de retard. Et Emmanuel Macron ne parle plus de passeport vaccinal, mais de passe sanitaire désormais, ce qui est différent, c'est-à-dire que ça désengage en fait toute la notion des frontières, le côté un peu diplomatique de ce passeport. Le passe sanitaire, c'est uniquement domestique, pour accéder potentiellement, quand ils seront rouverts, au musée, au restaurant.
Même si certains pays, et notamment les pays qui vivent le plus du tourisme, on pense à la Grèce, aimeraient bien et continuent à mettre sur la table, au fur et à mesure des sommets européens, l'idée d'un vrai passeport vaccinal, notamment pour sauver la saison estivale.
Yannick Fatt a raison de soulever cette échéance-là, parce qu'on a l'impression que c'est peut-être la prochaine crise ou le prochain caillou dans le fonctionnement de l'Union européenne. C'est-à-dire qu'à un moment, il va falloir évidemment envisager la sortie de crise et la vie après la crise, après cette crise sanitaire. Et cette question du passeport vaccinal, c'est vraiment une question, alors quelle que soit la façon dont on l'appelle d'ailleurs, c'est vraiment une question qui devrait être du ressort de l'Union européenne. Et si on veut que l'Union européenne ait un fonctionnement harmonieux, c'est à elle de s'en emparer, soit pour le valider, soit pour l'amender, soit pour l'empêcher. Mais si jamais des États-nations au sein de l'Union européenne prennent chacun des positions différentes et opposées sur ce sujet-là, on court un nouveau gros dysfonctionnement.
Donc trop d'Europe ou pas assez d'Europe selon le point de vue qu'on aborde sur cette question, Alex Boyaguet.
Oui, je pense que la France, sur la question du passeport vaccinal, aujourd'hui, elle est dans une position un peu figée, effectivement, où on sent que c'est un pass juste pour éventuellement voyager avec un test et tout. D'après Matignon, cette position, à partir du moment, ce qu'elle ne veut pas, c'est créer des citoyens de seconde zone avec ceux qui ont pu être vaccinés, ceux qui ne le seront pas. Mais à partir du moment où tout le monde sera vacciné, à l'Élysée, on commence déjà à réfléchir à quelle va être la vie d'après. Et la vie d'après, c'est pas juste la vie dans 15 jours, c'est la vie dans un an. Et la vie dans un an, à partir du moment où tout le monde sera vacciné, je pense que le retour du passeport vaccinal pour aller au restaurant, au musée, au cinéma, je pense qu'en France aussi, les esprits auront travaillé et on y arrivera.
On va en venir maintenant, Renaud Dely, au deuxième thème des informés ce matin, avec cette réunion qui va réunir aujourd'hui, une réunion qui va réunir, oui.
Absolument. Les ministres de l'Intérieur.
Les ministres de l'Intérieur, de la Justice.
Don't worry. All right. Well, hello, babe.
Fishers, truckers, trappers, and drifters. Right. And in New York, it is
Tough guys, wise guys, rich guys, and five guys.
Pour les deux victimes, on a des parents, enfin en tout cas des mères, qui sont
classé la route suivie par le convoi comme empruntable sans escorte. Est-ce que le danger dans cette zone du Nord Kivu a été sous-estimé par le PAM et par la MONUSCO?
Bon, c'est difficile à dire. En fait, la plupart des axes routiers du Nord Kivu sont susceptibles d'être attaqués à un moment ou à un autre. Là, effectivement, rétrospectivement, on peut se demander si l'évaluation était correcte. Mais il faut peut-être rappeler aussi quand même que ce tronçon-là était emprunté quotidiennement par des convois d'humanitaires sans escorte. Donc, c'est assez difficile d'être sûr à 100% qu'aucun convoi ne sera jamais attaqué. Et puis, l'aide humanitaire dépend de ces déplacements.
Mais que sait-on actuellement sur les circonstances de l'attaque? Il pourrait s'agir d'une tentative d'enlèvement qui aurait mal tourné?
Oui, c'est ce qui semble être aujourd'hui l'hypothèse la plus probable, effectivement.
Mais d'après vous, est-ce que les véhicules auraient dû être blindés, par exemple?
Je peux pas vraiment vous répondre là-dessus. Je suis pas expert dans les procédures de sécurité. Mais comme je le disais, c'est encore une fois l'aide humanitaire dans l'est du Congo, ça représente un secteur considérable. Et donc il y a énormément de convois qui pourraient être qui devraient être escortés à ce moment-là. Et je ne sais pas si les moyens seraient suffisants au niveau de la MONUSCO pour escorter tous ces convois.
Pourquoi les autorités congolaises, selon vous, Pierre Wesley, ont-elles très vite accusé les FDLR, donc ce groupe de rebelles hutus-rwandais, d'avoir commis l'attaque? Les FDLR qui ont démenti toute implication ensuite.
Alors, les FDLR, on sait qu'ils sont effectivement présents dans cette zone, donc c'est loin d'être inimaginable qu'ils soient responsables de cette attaque. Après, c'est vrai qu'on peut être surpris par la manière très rapide qu'a eu le gouvernement congolais de les accuser. Eux disent, en tout cas les militaires FARDC auxquels j'ai pu parler, disent que cette accusation-là s'est appuyée sur leur connaissance de l'implantation des FDLR et aussi de la direction dans laquelle les assaillants sont repartis après l'assaut.
Pierre Wesley, Abdulaziz avait une dernière question. Est-ce que de nouveaux moyens sont prévus pour sécuriser davantage la zone?
Comme je disais, c'est une zone extrêmement vaste en fait. Si on prend les 4 provinces de l'Est du Congo, donc Ituri, Nord Kivu, Sud Kivu et Tanganyika, c'est une zone de plus de 300 000 kilomètres carrés, pardon. Donc c'est la taille à peu près du Congo-Brazzaville. Et on recense au moins 120 groupes armés organisés dans cette zone. Donc
c'est difficile à sécuriser.
C'est difficile d'arriver à sécuriser.
Merci beaucoup Pierre Wesley et merci à vous Abdelaziz de nous avoir appelés. On part maintenant pour l'Afrique du Sud, pays le plus touché du continent par la tempête Covid. Plus d'1,5 million de cas et presque 50 000 morts. Et puis alors que la deuxième vague vient de se terminer, la campagne de vaccination a commencé il y a quelques semaines. Mais au-delà de la situation sanitaire, la santé économique du pays inquiète aussi. Claire Bargelès, bonjour.
Bonjour.
Vous êtes la correspondante de RFI à Johannesburg et vous allez pouvoir répondre aux questions de Esbon qui nous appelle de N'Djamena. Bonjour.
Bonjour, Madame Chantal.
Esbon, on vous écoute.
Ok. L'Afrique du Sud connaît une importante hausse de sa dette publique alors que son PIB continue de diminuer. Quel est l'impact de la COVID-19 dans cette crise?
Claire Bargelès, à quel point la crise sanitaire a-t-elle fragilisé l'économie sud-africaine?
Eh bien, il faut déjà rappeler que la situation économique s'était dégradée ici avant même le début de la pandémie. Rappelez-vous, fin 2019, l'Afrique du Sud était déjà entrée en récession, c'est-à-dire que sa croissance s'était ralentie. Et sur l'ensemble de l'année 2019, cette croissance, eh bien, elle était de 0,2%. Alors, le président Cyril Ramaphosa a essayé, depuis son arrivée au pouvoir, de donner une nouvelle impulsion. Mais forcément, la pandémie est venue accentuer la crise. L'Afrique du Sud a mis en place un confinement très strict en avril. Et si le pays a ensuite connu un relâchement des mesures, certaines entreprises ne s'en sont jamais relevées. Puis de nouvelles restrictions ont dû être mises en place lors de la deuxième vague en décembre-janvier. Résultat, la croissance devrait, selon le ministre des Finances, avoir chuté de moins 7,2% pour 2020. Or, cette croissance dont on parle, elle représente en fait la création de richesse. Elle est importante pour générer des emplois et on voit d'ailleurs que le taux de chômage s'est envolé à plus de 32% dans le pays, mais elle a aussi des conséquences sur les finances publiques de l'État.
Car moins de croissance, cela veut dire moins de recettes dans les caisses, Claire.
Oui, puisque cela signifie moins d'impôts et moins de taxes collectées. On a d'ailleurs vu un exemple très concret lors de l'interdiction de la vente d'alcool. Quand elle a été appliquée à 3 reprises, eh bien l'État n'a pas touché les taxes d'habitude liées aux ventes. Sauf que les dépenses, elles ne peuvent pas être réduites totalement, particulièrement en temps de coronavirus. Le gouvernement doit continuer à financer ses programmes ou encore dégager une enveloppe pour l'achat de vaccins. On observe donc un creusement du déficit, c'est-à-dire que les dépenses sont plus importantes que les recettes et l'État doit donc s'endetter. Alors pour l'année fiscale 2020-2021, le ministère des Finances estime que ce déficit sera de plus de 37 milliards d'euros, soit plus du double par rapport à l'année précédente. Cela porte le niveau de la dette sud-africaine à 80% du PIB. Alors, ce n'est pas forcément un problème en soi, mais ce qui inquiète, c'est que les agences de notation perdent leur confiance dans le pays et que cette dette, elle devient de plus en plus chère à rembourser.
Merci beaucoup, Claire Bargelès, en ligne de Johannesburg. Bonne journée à N'Djamena. On va terminer cette première partie d'appel sur l'actualité avec la nomination d'une Afro-Américaine de 68 ans, Linda Thomas Greenfield, au poste d'ambassadrice des États-Unis à l'ONU. Delphin, bonjour. Delphin?
Bonjour.
Oui, bonjour Delphin, vous nous appelez de Grand Popo au Bénin. En ligne avec nous, Jeffrey Hawkins, bonjour.
Bonjour.
Vous êtes chercheur à l'IRIS et ancien ambassadeur américain à Bangui. Delphin, on vous écoute.
Oui, bonjour Chantal, bonjour tout le monde.
Delphin, allez-y, quelle est votre première question?
Quelle est la réaction de la Chine face à cette nomination?
Jeffrey Hawkins, il faut d'abord souligner le tropisme africain de Linda Thomas Greenfield.
Oui, donc écoutez, la Chine, c'est un dossier hyper important pour le nouveau gouvernement, pour la nouvelle administration de Joe Biden. La Chine est parfois un adversaire, souvent un concurrent, et de temps en temps un partenaire aussi pour les États-Unis. N'oublions pas qu'on a un commerce très important avec la Chine, même si on considère qu'on ne joue pas à fond jeu avec les règles commerciales. Pour le Pentagone, la Chine, c'est un défi, notamment dans la mer de Chine méridionale. Pour le gouvernement américain, la Chine est souvent problématique avec son système autoritaire et avec ses violations de droits de l'homme. Donc, Linda Thomas Greenfield, notre nouveau ambassadeur aux Nations Unies, sera appelé à gérer cette relation hautement importante pour les États-Unis.
Et elle a eu des mots très durs. Elle a prononcé quasiment un réquisitoire contre Pékin lors de son audition de confirmation au Sénat. J'ai une longue expérience à propos de l'influence nuisible de la Chine, a-t-elle dit, de sa stratégie d'endetter et piéger en Afrique et ailleurs. Est-ce que ce n'est pas un peu gênant de commencer par un réquisitoire dès son arrivée à l'ONU?
Non, je pense qu'il faut mettre son discours dans son contexte. Et en général, Linda Thomas Greenfield, c'est quelqu'un, comme j'ai dit, un diplomate expérimenté, quelqu'un qui cherche plutôt la coopération quand c'est possible. Et elle avait fait un discours il y a à peu près un an qui a été fortement critiqué par les républicains depuis où elle a justement prôné la coopération avec la Chine en Afrique.
Now, L&M is king size as well as regular. Both have the same low price. Both have the miracle tip for the effective filtration you need. Yes, it's the filter that counts, and L&M has the best. You get much more flavor, much less nicotine, a light and mild smoke. Yes, this is it. L&M filters, just what the doctor ordered. buy a carton, king size or regular, both at the same low price. L&M Filters, America's highest quality and best filter tip cigarette.
You need a good way, you must have a good way. You learn from the proper classes, proper eating good way. You need a rude gal, always in the school gal, always on the mobile phone, not my eye.
Will remain the same as the original version performed by the late prominent pipa master Liu Zhehai. 它就是传统的刘德海老师版本的大谱乐家。
With that, we come to the end of this edition of Music Talks. I'd like to give a special thanks to Ms. Shurjuan for her contribution. Our staff members on the show include Yang Yong and Chen Zi. For more from us, be sure to find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. We'll see you next time.
Chesterfield will bring you another transcribed story of the Western frontier on Gunsmoke. This is the CBS Radio Network.
You're listening to Chin Radio AM 1540, the voice of multicultural Toronto, bringing you the latest updates on COVID-19. Stay informed, stay safe, and stay tuned to Chin Radio AM 1540.
Now, as gunshots echo across the wind-swept, snow-covered reaches of the wild Northwest, Quaker Puff Wheat and Quaker Puff Rice.
On February the 19th, he was 80. The artist, born in Victoria, shot to fame after illegally leaving his bronze 4.9 meter long, 3.2 ton charging bull outside the New York Stock Exchange building in December 1989, when he and his friends turned up in a truck carrying the large sculpture. They found that the New York Stock Exchange Christmas tree had been installed exactly where he had planned to place the sculpture. They left the charging bull under the 12-meter tree. He had financed the bronze statue himself at a cost of $350,000 US in order to give something back to his adoptive city in the wake of the 1987 stock market crash. The New York Stock Exchange swiftly had the sculpture removed, but later the outpouring of public support persuaded the city to keep it. It was soon given a permanent location at the Bowling Green Public Park on Broadway. In a recent interview with La Repubblica, the sculptor recalled the idea behind the charging bull, that when the New York Stock Exchange had plummeted more than 20% overnight, he wanted to do something for his town during that time of crisis. Then he got the idea to sculpt a bull, the image of a stock exchange on the rise. The charging bull is certainly one of the most photographed subjects in the Big Apple. A legend has developed that if visitors rub the nose, horns, and testicles of the bronze bull, they'll have good luck. The shininess of these parts of the sculpture attests. This is Special English.
Very special.
Bitcoin, the world's most popular cryptocurrency, has hit a new high of $58,800 $354 during trading on February the 21st, extending a 2-month rally.
Where? You can trade it for whatever you want. If you got $50,000, what do you get $100,000 worth of shit for your Bitcoin?
会员
sounds. I'd rather hear it in the reverse. I want to hear the fraction of a Bitcoin that you get for $1.
Exactly. So 会员 would be
that
member.
number gets
So
smaller and
since we're
smaller.
talking about your membership, actually the relation.
Let's see here, you scummy little... Now, McDowell! That goes for the rest of you, too. Lay off, McDowell and Davis. When the ship was foundered, they weren't helping to time it. Right. I saw Davis in the captain's quarters going through his strongbox. Oh, that's a filthy lie. You step out and I'll bash your head in. Come on, Davis, get back! Jackson, see that he does. Back, Davis. Lay off that stuff, Patty. I'm just saying what I saw. Maybe I did see Davis steal from the captain's strongbox. That's something we'll take up after we reach the mainland. Right now, we got to stick together. All Working together and using wood and metal salvaged from the wrecked Mary D, survivors completed the seaworthy open boat before the summer was over.
Boys, we've done it. There's only a little food left, but it'll last us long enough, let's hope. We'll set out for the mainland in the morning. Now get plenty of sleep.
Late that night, while their toil-worn shipmates slept the sleep of exhaustion, Jack McDowell and Hop Davis crept silently to the spot where the food supplies were kept. They're dead to the world, Huff, but be careful. Hey, don't worry about me. Let's hurry up. The two men moved a goodly part of the food supplies to the boat. In less than an hour's time, they entered the boat and rowed off into the Arctic Sea. Using the stars as their guide, they steered their course southward toward the Yukon shore. Days passed. Guided by the sun and stars, the two crooks made their way to the shores of the Yukon Territory. 3 days later, the two men met two Indians crossing a marshy wasteland. The Indians, surprised, gave directions in sign language and shared some of their food with the derelicts. McDowell and Davis repaid the kindness by attacking and overcoming the Indians.
Don't let him get away. Not there you are. Oh, all right, you. Oh.
The Indians, taken by surprise, were knocked out before they could defend themselves. McDowell looked at the two of them as they lay on the ground. Don't kill them. They're no shape to make trouble. We'll just tie them up and leave them. Some other Indians will probably pick them up later on.
They haven't got much to eat these tracks of theirs.
Well, it gives us more than we had before.
Yeah. Hey, you want some now?
Yeah. You know, we had a... Hey, Huff, you feel that?
Yeah. It's snow. Hey, Jack, what is this? It's still summer.
Yeah, but this is the Arctic. This isn't good, Huff. We have no sleds or snowshoes. Never mind the eats now. We got to get started south. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks in which the early snows covered the ground north of the Klondike. Sergeant Preston and his sled and dogs, heading toward the Pelly River, approached the isolated cabin of Joe LaRoche. Joe, a hunter and trapper, had continued to seek and find otter long after the Russians had given up that once valuable pursuit. The Frenchman was standing in the doorway, waving his arms in happy salute as King rushed from the sled to give a happy greeting to the man.
Oh, my friend King. Hello, hello, you wonderful dog.
King's glad to see you again, Joe. So am I. How are you?
Oh, Sergeant, what a pleasure. How good to shake your hand once more. And how nice to pat the fur of an animal who is a friend instead of a quarry.
Judging by the furs I see from here, you're having a fine season, Joe.
The best, Sergeant. The best ever. How stupid those Russians were to go away and leave all these otter for Joe LaRoche to capture. How stupid, and how good for me.
How's your wife? Well, I hope.
Oh, Sergeant, she too has never been better. But come inside and meet her. She will not say much, but you will see by her eyes that she is happy to greet her friend in the red coat. Come in, come in. Oh, Annie. Annie, look, Annie. Two friends have come to say hello.
Annie, Joe's wife, was a Siwash Indian, beautiful in her way and very shy. She greeted Sergeant Preston with a timid smile. smile and downcast eyes.
Annie, say hello to the sergeant. Then we cook for him the good salmon which only today I have caught myself. Say hello, Annie.
Hello, mon sergeant.
You're looking well, Mrs. LaRoche. You talk more and more like Joe each time I see you.
Oh.
That is funny, no? She talk English more like French than she talk it like Siwash. So you think she look good now, eh, Sergeant?
That's what I said, Joe.
Oh, sure. But when October come, then you should see how she look. Wee, how wonderful she will look. How happy, too, will I look. Wee, how wonderful.
Well, what's going to happen then, Joe?
I am give up this life. No more will Joe LaRoche seek the fur. When the fur merchant in Sitka buy my beautiful skins, Joe LaRoche will be a rich man. Then I'll retire. Nayani and me, we live like king and queen. Annie? Oh, when she giggle like that, she mean yes. Annie, you start for to cook that fish for the sergeant, huh? When she giggle like that, that means she got salmon ready.
Sergeant Preston dined with Joe LaRoche and his wife, then prepared to leave. I'm heading for the post at Tully, Joe. I'll be back in 2 or 3 weeks. If you haven't set out for White Horse and Sitka by then, I'll see you.
Oh, you promise that, Sergeant. We look for you.
I promise, Joe. Up front, King. All right, on King! On you, Husky! Meanwhile, as Sergeant Preston continued his journey, 2 men, unknown to him, sat in the shelter of a small cave they had found a few miles to the west. Jack McDowell, shivering, looked out at the snowdrifts piled up a short distance away.
Hey, snow or no snow, we can't stay here any longer. We'll be shut in tight by the drifts. We'll never get out. You know, it's a good thing we took those furs from the Indians. Else we'd be goners by now.
Since I rub my feet a bit, get out of this trap and head south again. I'll be ready in a few minutes.
At the northwest mounted post in Pelly a week later, Sergeant Preston saw the bodies of the 2 Indians carried in and placed on the floor. Constable Hall reported.
It's murder. 2 of them were tied hands and feet and left lying where I found them. Another day and the snow would have covered them.
Who would have done a thing like that?
White men, certainly. That's not an Indian trick.
Constable, were there any clues? Any trail near the bodies?
None. You're thinking of something, Sergeant. I can tell you are whenever you squint your eyes like that. You have some idea about this?
Only faintly. I was thinking about that report you showed me a few days ago, one Constable Henry brought down from the Circle base.
About the men that were picked up on the Far Island?
That's right. 2 of their comrades stole their boat, they said, and their food, heading for Yukon's shores.
You think those 2 might have done this?
Why not? Men who would do what they did to their shipmates are capable of any rotten thing. Constable, I'm starting south at once. If those men are still alive, I'll find them. What are their names?
McDowell and Davis.
McDowell and Davis, eh? Constable, if they're alive, I'm going to get them. We'll continue our adventure in just a moment.
Hey, wake up! Come and get them! There's shot from guns! Hey, I was asleep. What's going on? Who's shooting up the place?
Why, don't you Yukon lumberjacks know that's one of the best alarm clocks there is?
But I heard gunshot.
Yes, sir. For a real wake-up breakfast this morning, you're getting the swell-tasting cereal Shot from Guns. Take your choice of Quaker Puffed Wheat or Quaker Puffed Rice. You see, we load huge guns with choice sun-ripened premium grains of rice or wheat. Then they're exploded. Out come big, giant grains 8 times normal size. They're magnified, crispified, shot through and through with bang-up nut-like flavor, too. That's why Quaker Puffed Rice and Quaker Puffed Wheat are so good to eat.
Well, doggone.
And for breakfast, lunch, or supper, all you do is pour out a bowlful right from the package. No cooking. Just add milk or cream and top with your favorite fruit.
Man, oh man, my appetite's waking up already.
And what's more, Quaker Puffed Rice and Wheat are nourishing for you lumberjacks and all hard-working, hard-playing folks. They furnish added food values of restored natural drain amounts of vitamin B1, niacin, and iron. Hey, I'll wake up pronto for this here shot from Gun's breakfast any day. But that's a tip for you fellas and girls, too. Start your day every day with a bang-up breakfast of delicious, crisp, Quaker puffed rice or Quaker puffed wheat. Now to continue. Joe LaRoche had packed his furs and readied the food supply he and his wife would need for their journey south to Whitehall. And was now harnessing his team.
Joe!
At that moment, Joe's wife came to him.
Annie, why do you come here like this? You will catch cold.
Joe, you come. Men come. Me look outdoor. Me see men come. You look. You see men come. You see?
Huh? Joe gazed in the direction of his wife's pointing finger. About a quarter of a mile away, he could see two men, their figures black against the virgin white background.
Sacre, what is this? Two men alone in such weather as this, without dog or sled.
Joe, see. One fall.
He fall all right. Annie, you go back to the cabin, make fire big. Cook fast some soup and meat.
Oui.
I go to these men who fall in snow. Henri, Jacques, all of you, we go after these men. Come on, you dogs.
Joe LaRoche found Jack McDowell and Huff Davis and carried them back to his cabin. By some devilish miracle, they had survived a journey through snow and the terrible pangs of hunger. Joe and his wife revived the men, treating their numbed limbs and applying homemade medications. Then they fed them and gave them their beds in which to sleep.
Annie, it's lucky we find them before it's too late. We must see that they live. So we stay here for a day or a week until they are better, no?
You say, Joe. We stay.
Oh, I know you say that, Annie. We make them better and strong, you bet.
5 days passed. 5 days in which the constant care shown by Joe and his wife brought McDowell and Davis from the door of death to a now very animated life.
Oh, it's good to see you eat like that. Are you sure you haven't got anything to drink around here? Oh, I assure you, as I have done since you asked first yesterday, I have not. The wine I used to revive you was all I had.
Wine? You hear that, Jack? Who likes wine?
I assure you, messieurs, if it had not been for wine, you would not be alive to complain about it. Oh, I am sorry. I do not mean...
shut up. Maybe I'll have some more to eat after all. Hey, Annie, give me some more of that meat.
Annie, you stay there. Monsieur Davis, you will not speak to my wife like that.
What? Look, I'll speak to that squaw anyway I want.
Think of it, dog, how dare you? You insult my wife. I have him all sluggy.
McDowell threw his arms around Joe, holding him as Davis leaped from his chair.
Jack, hold him. Hold him while I get a hunk of firewood.
No, let go of me.
Slug him. He's breaking loose.
This'll do it. Oh.
McDowell stepped back and let Joe fall to the floor from the impact of a short piece of firewood.
Look at him, I'm cold.
For what you do to my Joe, I kill you.
Huh? Hey, Jack, she's got a gun. Give me that. Get out of here.
Thanks, Hub. I didn't see her go for that gun. We'll leave them and take the furs. Joe said these furs are worth more than gold. We'll take them to Sitka and sell them. The buyers are in this time of the year. You heard Joe say that?
Yeah, but maybe you don't know something, Jack.
Huh?
About trapping and about selling the skins. The Mounties give you a license to do that. It's something you got to pay for.
Well, we'll get around that. I don't know much about furs, but I read where some trappers have agents to sell their stuff to the buyers. We're going to be agents for Joe LaRoche.
Huh?
You don't believe that, huh? You'll see when he comes to.
A few minutes later, when Joe LaRoche revived, McDowell stood over him with pointed gun. Joe looked past the menacing revolver to where Annie lay in the corner, bound hand and foot.
You monsters! What have you done to my wife?
Nothing yet. We'll do plenty if you refuse to do what we say.
Jack's talking the truth. We'll kill her. Unless...
Unless what?
Unless you write us a letter addressed to the Mounties saying we're your agents and that you've given us a furs to sell for you in Sitka.
Messieurs, my wife is more dear to me than all the money in the world. Spare her, and I shall do as you say.
Joe LaRoche wrote a letter addressed to Canadian authorities, naming the two men as his selling agents. But but using on their instructions false names instead of their true ones. When they had the letter, Joe was bound and gagged and placed in the corner of the cabin with his wife. A few minutes later, after the sled was filled with LaRoche's furs and Trapper's entire food supply, McDowell and Davis started south.
Come on, you butch, get yours.
Sergeant Preston, heading south, had passed Joe LaRoche's cabin a few miles to the west. Then a sudden thought came to him.
Okay, hi, you husky. Hello, hey, boy.
He stopped his sled and spoke to King as if the dog were human.
King, I almost forgot. I promised Joe LaRoche I'd drop by his cabin on the way back to White Horse. Perhaps he's already gone, but if he hasn't, there's a chance he may have seen the men we're trailing. Tell you what, let's turn east by north and go there. Up front, boy.
All right, on King.
Sergeant Preston and his team were halfway to the LaRoche cabin when suddenly King began to bark.
What is it, King?
The sergeant looked off to the northeast and saw a sled and dogs heading directly south. As he approached the oncoming team from an angle, he recognized the dogs as those of Joe LaRoche.
Okay, hello.
Jack McDowell and Huff Davis were alarmed when they saw the dog team approaching from the southwest. Now, as the man driving that sled stopped it and walked toward them, McDowell put his hand in the pocket of his parka and fingered the gun there. Preston spoke first.
Hello. I saw the dogs. Thought for a moment that you were Joe LaRoche.
Oh, you did, eh? Well, you see we're not, don't you?
Those are Joe's dogs you're driving?
Yeah, they are. What about it?
What are you doing with them? Where's Joe?
What's it to you?
I'm asking a civil question, which I have a right to ask. Who are you two? I don't believe I know you.
We don't want to know you. Now get out of the way.
Yeah. You want to know who we are? This will show you. Jack. Get out of my arm. The dog's biting my arm.
I'm fighting, just holding. I'll take that gun with me.
Hey, now look.
Get out of my way.
Get away, you mutt.
I said I'll take that gun. That's it. All right, King. Down, boy.
Look at what he did to the sleeve of my pocket.
Serves you right. So you stand together. You. Get over here beside your partner.
Yeah, all right, I'm doing it.
I'm Sergeant Preston, Northwest Mounted Police. Yes? I'm looking for two men who left their shipmates to die on an island.
Say, I'm glad.
Glad?
We didn't know who you were, Sergeant. We thought perhaps you were one of those two fellows.
What is this? How would you know about them?
Joe LaRoche told us about them. They barged in on him a few days ago. We took some food from them and started out for 60 Mile. Huh? Pete, that's where they told him they were going, isn't it?
Huh? Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right, Ed. They said they were going to 60 Mile.
Well, you make it sound interesting, but let me see your identification.
Sure. Be glad to. We just got here yesterday from White Horse. We're old friends of yours, acting as agents for them. Yeah. Here's our letter of agency, you see.
Joe sent for us to come up and get us furs. That's why we have him here in his sled. His dogs, too. He made us use them.
Yeah, he made us use them. They're fresher than ours. We left ours at his place.
His wife is sick. That's why he sent for us. Huh, Ed?
That's right, Pete.
Let me finish reading this, please. Oh, I see. Pete Bradley and Ed Martin. That's your names, eh?
Yes.
Fur agents from Sitka, huh?
That's right.
You see what it says there in the letter, don't you?
Yes, I recognize Joe LaRoche's signature, too. You're handling all his seal, marten, and finch skins, it says here.
Yeah, he has a great collection of them.
Mind if I look at them?
No, go right ahead. Open the canvas for him, man.
Oh, sure. Take a look at him, Sergeant.
Thanks.
Sergeant Preston walked to the sled, placing the letter in his pocket with his left hand. He looked at the revolver in his right hand and pocketed that, too.
I'll not have to use this, I imagine.
Oh, no. It's funny how we thought you were one of those fellas you're looking for, isn't it?
Yes, isn't it?
Look at those furs. Nice, huh?
Yeah, great. Those marten skins are the best I've seen.
Well, that's what we said, didn't we, Ed?
Just what we said, Pete. We ought to make a lot of money for Joe with these. Huh, Sergeant?
That's sure, Joe. I like those finch skins, too.
Yeah. Better than the marten, I think. Well, is everything all right now?
Yes, this letter's told me all I wanted to know.
Good. Let me have it back then, eh? And my gun?
Here's the letter. Wait till I get the gun out of my pocket. Here you are.
Thanks, Sergeant. We'll be getting along. You coming, Pete?
Oh, sure, Ed. So long, Sergeant.
So long. Preston watched both men rearrange the canvas and walk to the back of the sled, backs turned to him. Then he called.
Just a minute, McDowell.
Yeah, what is it?
He said McDowell.
And he answered. Gentlemen, your little game's up.
No, it's not. You forgot you gave me back my gun.
No, I didn't. Go ahead and shoot.
Yes, I am. You no good.
Ring, don't bother, boy. That gun isn't going to fire, McDowell. I removed the bullets while I had it in my pocket. This gun I have is loaded, though. Raise your hands, both of you.
Mine are up, you see?
Yeah, mine too. How did you know our names?
You answered to yours, McDowell. You see, I'd heard them before at Pelly. Your shipmates were rescued from the island where you left them a week after you took their boat.
Rescued?
I'll take you to Dawson instead of Whitehorse. That's where they've been sent by boat. They'll be waiting for you. As for the two Indians you murdered...
No, we didn't murder them. We just tied them and left them.
Then it was. Thanks for telling me what I wanted to know. The charge will be murder because they both died.
Davis, you blabbering fool.
LaRoche knew you weren't fur experts. He made your capture an easy thing.
LaRoche did it.
Oh. In that letter he wrote for you, he said you were his agent for selling seal, marten, and finch skins. The only skins on the sled were otter. And by the way, finch is a bird. I didn't see any bird pelts on the sled.
That double-crossing Frenchman. We should have killed him.
You didn't? I'm glad to hear that. We'll go back to his cabin then. He'll make a good witness against you before they hang you.
How are we going back there?
You'll drive Joe's sled. I'll drive behind you, ready to shoot if you make a false move. And my dog King will see that you don't, too. Right, King?
Yeah, they shot you the first time it wasn't for that dog.
You know, a lot of people have said that.
Those fellas from the ship. They'll kill us if they get near us. You won't let them, will you?
I'd like to, after knowing the crimes you two have committed. Hanging will be easy compared to what they might do to you. But my job is to hand you over to the authorities. After I've done that, as far as I'm concerned, this case is closed.
Sergeant Preston will return in just a moment with a word about our next exciting adventure.
All aboard for your best buy.
Yes, get aboard Quaker Puffed Wheat and Quaker Puffed Rice for your best cereal buy.
So where it was the bottom, how did that feel?
Well, we're at the bottom because we stopped. We couldn't go any further. We ran out of water. Yeah, well, we're looking at our depth gauge, and it seemed to indicate about what the scientists had estimated the depth would be at Challenger Deep. Jacques and I shook hands. I was very proud of my team. I'm a very junior naval officer. I'm just a lieutenant at the time. And that our little team had pulled this off, just what we promised, we did it. That was the big moment of immense pride that we had achieved this.
You had windows in this craft. What did you see down there?
Yeah, we had a single viewport made of acrylic plastic. It was 7 inches thick. There's a pressure boundary, of course. The inner opening inside the cabin was only big enough for one eyeball or one camera lens. It was pretty primitive. When we landed on the bottom, we stirred up a lot of bottom sediment. That happened on all our dives, totally expected. And pretty soon, the current would carry that cloud off. Well, this time, the bottom sediment was so fine that it remained in suspension for the whole 20 minutes we were on the seafloor. We could see nothing.
The successful dive won Don Walsh and Jacques Piccard many awards and honors, but it would be more than 50 years before anyone ever made a dive to the bottom of Challenger Deep again. So why so long?
If you can get to 20,000 feet, you can look at 98% of the seafloor. Only 2% is deeper between 20,000 and 36,000 feet. So paying for development of new technology, new equipment, you only have to pay for half the full depth of the ocean, much easier from an engineering and cost point of view, and you get a 98% return. That's good business. However, a scientist will tell you that last 2%, we call the hadal depths, those are all the trenches. And that's where being able to understand plate tectonics, how the basic mechanics of our planet works, you have to be able to understand these deep trenches. Explorers have this drive to be able to do something unique as a scientist. If I could just get a little further out into space, maybe that'll help me understand the cosmos. You get driven by that, and quite ordinary people do extraordinary things.
Don Walsh, now in his late 80s, is still involved in cutting-edge oceanic research. In the past few years, more evidence has emerged of the vital importance the deep ocean has on the health of our entire planet, including as a carbon sink absorbing CO2 emissions.
I've seen over that 70 years the changes in the climate of our planet, first in the polar regions. And I've seen that with my own eyes. It comes down to one short phrase: ocean awareness. People don't understand how everything on our planet depends on the oceans, the health of the oceans. And if you don't understand something, how can you preserve it? From the first time I ever went to sea, I just loved it. It's my sacred place. I mean, after all, you know, our blood in our bodies has about the same salinity as seawater. We are creatures of the sea. We all crawled ashore at some time in the past. It's just that the marine mammals didn't quite make it that far. They just didn't make it across the beach like we did.
Pioneering oceanographer and explorer Don Walsh. He was speaking to me, Rebecca Kesby, for Witness History.
This is the BBC World Service, where we're always asking questions. Why does...
Will I ever know what actually happens to us?
What do you think it is that Crowd Science takes your questions from all over the world and turns them into answers? In the next Crowd Science,
I'd like to find out why men rule the world.
Can science explain why only 1 in 10 countries have a female head of state?
Crowd Science, today at 11:30 GMT. And in 60 minutes, the Cultural Frontline with Nawal Al-Mukafi.
Authors from Lahore and Karachi discuss the challenges of publishing new fiction from Pakistan. And multi-award-winning author Amitabh Ghosh on why he's turned to folklore and verse to convey an environmental message.
This is the BBC World Service, the world's radio station.
This is the BBC World Service. Coming up is the climate question.
Today, habits and home truths.
To avoid the worst effects of climate change, we need to drastically change our habits. But habits die hard.
It's because we do them almost unconsciously. We're often not aware that we're doing it.
And the habits that matter most include what we eat and how we power our homes. But scientists are trying to help us break them.
It is early days, they're urgent days, and they're also, it's important to recognize exciting days, because we have an opportunity to do something. We have an opportunity to make a difference. This is not doom and gloom, this is the time to act.
So our climate question is, how can we be nudged or even shoved to change?
Answers after the news.
BBC News. Hello, this is Jerry Smith. Protesters are back on the streets of Yangon, Myanmar's largest city, a day after 18 were killed by the security forces. The demonstrators remain defiant in their opposition to last month's military coup. The detained civilian leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, has appeared in court via video link in the capital Naypyidaw. Jonathan Head looks at the charges she's facing.
They could add to the length of any prison sentence they want to give her. We understood that she was facing up to 6 years on the existing charges. They're patently absurd. This is a woman who was de facto head of state until the coup overthrew her. And at the time they overthrew her, they claimed to find these walkie-talkie radios used by her security staff, as any senior official would have had in her house, that they're blaming her for being unregistered. It's a device basically to justify keeping her detained. Everyone understands that. It's interesting they haven't attempted yet to apply any more serious charges.
Health workers in Ivory Coast will be the first to receive doses of the Oxford-AstraZeneca vaccine as part of the international COVAX scheme targeting some of the world's poorest countries. Neighbouring Ghana is due to start its COVAX vaccination programme on Tuesday. Naomi Grimley reports.
COVAX is the biggest vaccine procurement plan in human history. But it's struggled in the international scramble for vaccines and has faced criticism for being too slow to start its rollout. Some countries have looked elsewhere in the interim to boost supplies through bilateral deals. The World Health Organization described the rollout as an important first step towards achieving vaccine equity, but it added it was still only the beginning.
The New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has urged people to inform on COVID rule breakers. Ms Ardern said some people involved in the latest outbreak that's pushed the city of Auckland back into lockdown had ignored clear instructions to remain in isolation and not disclose their movements. She said this should not be allowed to happen again.
I'm asking everyone, now more than ever,
to continue to back and support one another. And if that means calling a family member or work colleague out for not following the rules, then we should do that. Do it with kindness, but do it.
There's significant anger that one family's actions has put Auckland's 1.7 million people into a one-week lockdown. The fiancé of the late Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi has called for Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to be punished for his murder. In her first reaction since the publication last week of a US intelligence report, Hatice Cengiz said on Twitter that if Prince Mohammed escaped sanction, it would be a stain on humanity. There's been criticism of the Biden administration for not taking more action. BBC News. Police in Hong Kong have told hundreds of protesters gathered outside a court that they're in breach of the controversial national security law. Among the crowd were diplomats seeking to witness the trial of 47 pro-democracy activists who've been charged under the law imposed by Beijing last year. Those in court today had taken part in an unofficial primary poll to select opposition candidates for a legislative election. The US envoy to Afghanistan, Zalmay Khalilzad, has held talks with the senior Afghan leader to try to accelerate the peace process. Afghan officials said Mr. Khalilzad met Abdullah, the head of the High Council for National Reconciliation, to review the US Taliban deal and the need to reduce violence. Peace talks between the Afghan government and the Taliban in Doha have stalled, while the Biden administration assesses former President Trump's commitment to pull US troops out of Afghanistan. The former French President Nicolas Sarkozy is due to learn the verdict today in his trial on corruption charges. Mr. Sarkozy is accused of offering a judge a plum job in return for inside information on an investigation into his campaign finances. He denies the charges. Mr. Sarkozy faces a number of other investigations. The road movie Nomadland, about marginalized Americans living in vans, has won the Best Drama Award at the Golden Globes. Chloe Zhao, who made the film, also won Best Director. The late actor Chadwick Boseman scooped Best Actor for the period blues drama Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, 6 months after.
About 100.
Huh? 6 teams, each team pulling 2 sleds tandem. That way we'll be able to carry enough. What about medical supplies, Mary?
Oh, I've already spoken to Dr. Monday. They'll be ready whenever you want to load them. And young Dr. Jones and I are coming along.
You, Mary?
Well, from what the boy says, I'll be needed.
It's a hard trip.
We can't hope to make it in less than 2 weeks. And when we get into the passes...
Oh, you don't have to tell me. But I'm a sourdough and I can take it.
You know, it's funny.
What is?
There's gold up there, lots of it. The whole creek's been staked and every claim's a good one. But nobody cares about the gold. It's bacon and beans that matter now. All that matters, food and medicine.
Yes, I can understand that. There's one more thing I want to ask you about.
What's that, Sergeant?
You told me yesterday that the night before last you stopped at a camp up the Klondike. The men gave you something to eat, and you told them about Wilderness.
That's right.
You went to sleep, and when you woke up, the men were gone. They deserted you.
Yes, I was all alone.
Were you snowblind at the time?
Yes.
And they left you alone? Why, that's the same as murder, Sergeant.
Maybe I just imagined the camp and the men, but their food was hot and good, and I was so hungry.
Doesn't sound like imagination to me. How many men were there?
6 or 7.
I realize you couldn't see them. Do you remember any of their names?
Let me think. Yeah, there was Lefty.
Oh?
He seemed to be their leader. He gave all the orders.
Lefty Daniels, Sergeant.
Probably. Probably the whole gang.
The one that held up the express office in 40 Mile and killed those 2 men.
Yes.
Oh, Jerry, you're lucky they only left you. It's a wonder they didn't kill you.
Probably thought they were killing him by deserting him. You told them all about Wilderness, Jerry.
Yes, sir.
The gold and the sickness.
Yes, they kept asking questions and I answered them all.
That's bad, Jerry. It's going to be hard enough, the trip to Wilderness. After we get there, I'm afraid we'll meet Lefty and his gang. Lots of gold and men too weak to defend themselves. Lefty couldn't ask for anything better than that. No telling what they'll find.
From the hospital, the sergeant hurried to headquarters and made his report to the inspector. The inspector approved his plans for the relief of the Wilderness Creek miners, and then considered the problem of Lefty Daniels' gang.
And you think that they may be heading for Wilderness, too?
It's possible, sir.
Except that they must be running short of supplies themselves. They head for a starvation camp. I don't know, Sergeant.
They might pick up supplies en route, sir.
Well, that's true. Where was it this young prospector stumbled on their camp?
On the Klondike. I should judge a little bit beyond Leota. He couldn't have walked more than a couple of miles before I picked him up.
Well, Webster's assigned to the case. He'd better get up there.
It snowed yesterday, sir. Won't be any tracks to follow.
6 or 7 men traveling together. Someone will have seen them. Webster should be able to pick up that trail. If it leads to Wilderness, you and Downey might arrive in time to give him a hand with the arrest.
He may need help, sir.
If they're heading south, you'll get it at Whitehorse. At any rate, your first job will be to see that the supplies get through. As you and Constable Downey, you'll need more drivers.
Doc Jones can drive. I can get Bill Stewart, Jeff Smith, and Harry Lang. They have their own sleds and teams.
That means that we'll have to furnish 3 teams and 6 sleds.
We have them, sir.
You're free to draw on our commissary, of course. You can charge anything else that you need to the force's account.
Thank you, sir.
Go to it, Sergeant, and the best of luck.
We may need it, sir. One game.
Stewart, Smith, and Lang were contacted and agreed to make the trip with the sergeant. By late afternoon, the 12 sleds were loaded. Since there was a full moon, it was decided to start at once. Nearly the whole population of Dawson gathered around headquarters to say goodbye and speed them on their way.
Bye, Sergeant.
Bye, King. With the sergeant in the lead, the relief train headed down Front Street, then turned east on the Klondike. The weather was clear and cold, and the snow hard-packed on the trail. The dogs threw their weight into the harness, and the sleds moved easily on their iced runners. But this was the easy part of the trip, and ahead lay mountain passes choked with snow, the threat of avalanches, and of sudden storms roaring down from the icy peaks. They ran into their first blizzard when they were a day's travel beyond the headwaters of the Klondike. Luckily, there was a trading post there to give them shelter for the night. But the owner had bad news.
You're sure it was Lefty Daniels?
Well, absolutely. I didn't have much gold, and he wasn't interested in furs, so it could have been worse.
Just what did he take besides your gold?
Well, there was flour, bacon, beans.
Ammunition?
All I had.
How long ago was this?
4 days.
And you reported the holdup to Constable Webster?
Sure. He came by the next day.
I suppose he followed them into the mountains.
Hardly stopped to eat. He came by here at noon.
How many men with Lefty?
Well, there were 6. I recognized a couple of them. A breed they call Casoya and Scar Murdoch.
Yes, they were both seen in 40 Mile, and the express office was held up.
6 of them. And with Lefty, that's 7. I sure hope old Webster doesn't try to take on the whole crew.
They know as well be along. Only thing I'm afraid of is an ambush. It's dangerous country ahead.
I feel like pushing on.
We wouldn't gain much.
I should say not. You'd only wear out your dogs.
We'll wait until the storm's over. Still a long way to Wilderness.
Even with the storm over, the drifted snow turned travel into a constant battle against cold and weariness. Now, Yukon King was unable to break the trail for the teams, and the sergeant walked ahead of him on snowshoes. The relief sleds covered only 10 miles during the first 12 hours after leaving the trading post. The second day of travel netted 20 miles. But then, the first of the mountain passes was reached, and their progress dwindled to less than a mile an hour again. It was during the 4th day that King started to bark as the sergeant was plowing his way around a huge drift.
What is it, King? What's underneath there? Oh, wait a minute, fellow. I'll unharness you.
Once freed of the traces, King made the snow fly, and at last he uncovered a pile of stone.
That's strange.
What is it, Sergeant?
These stones look like a cache. A couple of shovels on the first sled. Let's give King a hand.
Right.
A few minutes later, the sergeant, Constable Downey, and King had uncovered 3 piles of stones, and the other members of the party gathered around as they started to throw the stones aside.
Not caches, no.
Graves, Sergeant.
Yes.
Constable Webster.
The breed Casoya. Well, that must be another member of the gang. They got Webster coming through here, but he got 2 of them. It's up to us to get the rest of them.
We'll continue our adventure in just a moment. Say, fellas and girls, you know what's coming this month? Valentine's Day. Gee, aren't Valentines a wonderful idea? I wonder who's at the door. Why, it's our old friend, the postman. Say, am I glad to see you.
Howdy, young fella.
Don't tell me you're already delivering Valentine.
I sure am.
Got any for me?
Yep. Here's a pretty special one.
Oh, gee, it's real pretty. And it says, to my Valentine.
That's to you, bud, from my wife.
And it says here, thanks for tipping us off to those wonderful breakfasts of Quaker puffed wheat and Quaker puffed rice. My husband has been a different man ever since.
That's me.
You?
Yep. Seems like I never used to care much for breakfast.
Oh?
Son, you should see me now.
You mean you eat a big bowl full of Quaker puffed wheat or Quaker puffed rice every morning?
Do I? Say, I pour on the old milk or cream, add some fruit, and it sure tastes good.
Mighty good for you, too. Quaker puffed wheat and Quaker puffed rice furnish added food values of restored natural grain amounts of vitamin B1, niacin, and iron.
Well, that's why I eat Quaker puffed wheat one day and Quaker puffed rice the next.
That's a swell idea.
Utilise sa stratégie pour retrouver de la valeur là où il pense.
Il révèle une forme de fragilité, mais encore faut-il que le public soit là.
Yeah, of course. As soon as you go to use the controls, that's when you're going to fuck around. It's okay. You are fucking retarded.
A largement vanté son bilan jusqu'à s'attribuer le fait que beaucoup d'Américains sont aujourd'hui vaccinés alors qu'il n'est plus en fonction, ce n'est plus sous lui que ça se passe. Et puis c'est un discours qui est rempli d'aigreur autant revanchards, les républicains qui ont voté l'impeachment, ça a été dit par votre correspondant, et puis toujours, comme toujours, être enfermé dans le suspense, dans le feuilletonnage, dans le teasing, comme dans une série télé.
Keep it up. Keep editing the fucking. Keep editing your screenshots. Keep doing your whole
d'autres
thing.
moments du discours en disant je vais pouvoir gagner une troisième fois,
et
insistant sur le fait qu'il a gagné en 2020 et qui est largement manqué de mensonges tout au long du discours.
Ça reste le même discours pour Donald Trump. Elle était truquée.
Oui, on m'a volé l'élection, elle était truquée, et il a dit à un moment, c'est très intéressant, il a dit qu'il fallait restreindre les conditions d'accès au